Today's show, we are going to review Mary Poppins, the original Mary Poppins from 1934. And wow, that is not what I remembered. Mom's here. Let's talk.
I didn't know there was an original Mary Poppins.
It's actually a series of four books. We have Mary Poppins Returns, and then some other ones with Mary Poppins and some sort of word that comes after her name. Um,
Was the movie like a combination of all those Mary Poppins or no?
The movie, I think, and again, because after reading this, I'm not surprised, but I have no clue. I think it's the main one. Um,
Okay.
so
Curious.
yeah, it was a little maybe unsettling is the right word. I'm not sure. So for those who don't know, P.L. Travers, the author of this book, um, wasn't actually a fan, as many authors are, of their book being turned into a feature film.
Mhm.
So, not surprising, they didn't have very polite words to say when the Disney company made their first version of it. So, Mary Poppins, as we've seen her, is not really what she was in the book. She's not a very nice person to what we
Just
expect.
tell us, Rob. Just let
All
us
right, fine.
know.
I'll just tell you. So, in the story, she is not warm or nurturing. She is very strict. She's very vain, very emotionally distant from the children and from the parents that she meets. She doesn't explain things. She doesn't comfort people. She just basically says, "This is what we're doing. That's it. Done. Stop asking questions, or we're not going to go anywhere." That's it.
Okay.
Not necessarily the best babysitter you wanna,
Yeah.
hire for your family, but that's what it was. You know, even though she is practically perfect in every way as it's written, she also knows it and reminds you of it as well. So, you know and so like I said, Peel Travers was very specific to their, version of it and was not a fan of anyone else changing the character. Literary analysts have often described Mary as a mythical or archetypal figure, not a caregiver. So she kind of is the epitome of, I don't know, the person that teaches you a lesson in a Greek myth, not necessarily a nice person, but somebody who basically explains what's going on, even if they're very, I don't know, to the point.
Not warm
Sound
and
familiar,
fuzzy.
anybody? I don't know. I mean,
Not warm and fuzzy. Not warm and fuzzy.
right. The Guardian has know the character is much stricter and much stranger in the original book. So, I mean, does
Do
the
they?
character have to be liked?
Yeah. I mean, do they have to be? Well, I guess it depends. Um, in the movie, I don't think it would have translated that well if the
Not at all.
right. It wouldn't have in the book. I mean, that is like a complete 180, is what you're saying. I mean,
It is, and I think the thought I always have is like if you were to rewrite it today or remake it today with the original story, with the original character, excuse me, like would it make sense? Would it work? I know there's a lot of drama stories that are out there that are very hard hitting and very to the point. A lot of romance does that. They get very in depth and to the point where you're just like, ooh, this is kind of painful to watch.
right.
But at the same time, I mean, would it work? Do we need everybody to be perfect and likable, or do we just need them to be a good character, right? Like, it's
I'm literally in my head singing just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That
I'm
was
pretty sure what's her name would not be pleased to know that the character she played was not
singing
anywhere
a
close.
song like that with you're going to
Exactly.
go down well. Probably in the book, it was not to go down well. You should take your medicine and like it.
Exactly, exactly. Now, the one thing about the book versus the movie was there was a lot more magic and kind of a lot more odd than we visually saw. Now, obviously, in the film, there was a lot of kind of, weird things going on. The dancing penguins comes to mind because
Right.
that's just the best thing I can ever think of. But the magic isn't really explained at all. It just kind of it's there because it's there. And it's different from like a fantasy book because in a fantasy book, at least the author explains why things are going on as they are. So they go, hey, this is why you can take out the wand and do something. That's how this works. This is basically just like, oh, she can fly.
With her umbrella, right? She just
Ask the logistics. They're just like,
or the chimney, step in time, step in time. Like
exactly. They're
you're right. They don't explain it.
animals,
Right.
planets and stuff. All of these things are happening. Nobody seems to care to even wonder why. They're just like, oh, that's what goes on, so that's what goes on. Um, and then here's the weird twist in the book for those who don't remember. After all this goes down, nobody remembers actually what happened. So it's almost as if this story is kind of like a figment or like a hallucination or a dream.
A dream.
And by the end of it, all the kids are like, who's Mary Poppins? Like it's kind of one of those things like, wait, did this actually happen? Are we having a weird nightmare? Like what's
Is that in the book or in the movie? You're saying.
that's in the book. So for those who
Oh,
have read the book, that's the twist of the whole thing is like it kind of reminds you of the Twilight Zone, where at the end of the episode you kind of go, wait, what just happened? Like what like it and it's interesting in a way because this was at a time when that kind of format wasn't really treated as such. So
mhm,
it's interesting to see that a author from the 30s wrote that way. But if you're looking at it from what you're used to, this
mhm.
is a very different hodgepodge of, stuff. So one of the lines in the book goes, stuff just happens and then it's gone like it never mattered. Like that. I feel like that's what the author's life idea is. It's like things happen, then you forget, move on.
When was this, Rob? When was this book written?
1934.
1934. So yeah, before. Okay.
And so, for instance, a lot of scholars who study children's lit basically describe this as dream logic rather than structured fantasy. So, like I was saying before, instead of like The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter that explains the fantasy, this is basically you're reading something that doesn't make sense, but it's probably not going to the end. That's the analysis of what
Interesting.
critics, would say. Um, so this kind of makes a point of, as you get older and as you kind of forget about magic per se, like, is this an exploration of, time of going when you get to a point, do you kind of lose interest and forget about the imagination? Is this kind of the author's way of saying, well, when you're a kid, everything is cool and whatever, but then when you stop, you're kind of like,
Hmm.
so what I mean, is that something I don't know how much fantasy you've read, but is that something that makes
Yeah,
sense to the fact of like
it sort of makes sense. I don't read a lot of fantasy, so it's hard for me to respond in kind.
all right, so I think the real message for this particular story is growth. And that's kind of where that question came
Right.
from. You're not reading a story that's made to make you happy per se. It's kind of an example of your story
It
as
just
you
is what it
grow.
is. It's not. It is what it is. There's no fluff around it. This is
Exactly.
what
Nobody's
you feel
being
like.
saved. Nobody's getting magical powers. Nobody's, getting the cup of life.
The
Whatever
antithesis
your base.
of the movie. Who the Mary Poppins had magical power. I mean, that's really interesting. It's almost like they went the other direction, maybe on purpose. Maybe it was too dark. I don't know.
Well, I mean, as we know, a lot of studios, a lot of people will change it to make it more palatable. So whether or not they like the original book or not, they probably did it more for safety precautions, especially if you're a movie company making kids films, which actually I shouldn't say that because I do remember growing up with a lot of movies that definitely were not appropriate for kids, but they were made for kids.
Right. A lot of
So I
Disney.
think you have a point
Yeah,
there.
yeah, a lot of Disney. As we like to do at the end of the show is remind you to go visit the next chapter bookstore.shop. Lots of books there, fantasy. I don't know if you have Mary Poppins there, but these kind of books are there, fiction, nonfiction, you name it, it's there. Go check it out. And as I like to say all the time, Rob, what do you have to say at the end of the
And
show?
I will respond with, go read a book. Maybe not Mary Poppins, but go read a book.
See you next time, everyone.